So we're learning to just sit. We can notice all the elements of sitting. And so there are practices where you just are mindful of your posture the whole sit. You notice how you feel on your seat, whether you feel supported, stable, your legs, your feet. You notice your spinal column and whether it feels spacious, fluid, upright. And you might make a little adjustment here or there, but for the most part, we're just sitting. So we're just noticing, oh, hmm, I feel kind of hunched. I feel kind of collapsed. I feel some stiffness or blockage in my spine. Okay, I'm gonna just let that be. You're just sitting here. And if that's how you sit, that's how you sit. You may find that noticing that the body itself starts to adjust, starts to open up areas that are just habitually closed or collapsed. This noticing of the body allows for transformation of the body without the mind having to get involved and decide what to do. When we give attention to things, then our subconscious, our emotions, our body starts to work on those things. Hmm. So again, we notice our spinal column. If you're giving attention, for instance, to the news and it's scary, it doesn't matter. Your mind and your body start working on that problem, even if you have no way of doing anything about it. Now, if you give attention to your posture, well, your body can respond to that and can do something about it. And you want to love those parts. You want to give attention with acceptance to those parts that don't that the mind is judging, like, oh, I wish my that part didn't hurt, or I wish I could be sit upright. You just let it be and you stay relaxed in your sitting. You're just sitting the way you are, all the way up through your neck. So your arms and your hands are part of sitting. Your hands are kind of important. I've been mostly putting them on my thighs in a kind of grounding posture for me. But most of my meditation history was done with the classic right hand or dominant hand inside, laying on top of the weaker hand in your lap. That's another posture. But your hands are important because your hands have lots of nerve endings and they are the site of a lot of your doing. So they're always ready to do. So becoming awake to your hands in the sitting allows you to explore some of your habitual doing at a very, very subconscious or low level at the nervous system level. That's why we put our dominant hand in our weak hand. Because we're telling it to surrender to the sitting. The hands don't have a lot to do in the sitting, so they have to come up with another way of being part of things, and that is to surrender to just sitting. Another important part of your posture when you're sitting is your face, your eyes, your mouth, your tongue, your throat. Now, there might be some tension, for instance, in your jaw or mouth that's been there for a long time that might not be ready to relax. So we're not forcing that. Just as we notice with the spine, we notice, oh, there's some tension or some hidden emotion. But again, by giving attention to these areas, we allow ourselves to wake up to what's happening there, and that might allow for transformation. And it might happen very quickly. If I pay attention to my forehead, it's always a little scrunched. The second I pay attention to it, it just relaxes. It just spreads. It's like, oh yeah, I don't need to do that. And so over time, you'll teach these parts of your body that they don't need to do all the things they're doing. And so the face ultimately is the most fine-tuned instrument for expressing your emotional state. And so while we're just sitting, we're moving towards a facial expression that is consistent with just sitting, that is consistent with not doing anything else. It's consistent with not having any other problems that I need to work on because I'm just sitting. And it's a face ultimately that will express peacefulness and relaxation. It might express joy and compassion, openness, focus. Now, when we're just sitting, we're just letting it be there, but we're aware of the face as part of the sitting experience. There are practices where you intentionally really try to adopt a kind of facial posture that would express where you want to go. That's a more active kind of practice. And ultimately will eventually return you back to just sitting without effort. And today you can just see, what does my face feel like? Is there any joy or relaxation? Is there the availability of openness and peacefulness in my face, in my eyes, in my mouth? Can your face be part of just sitting? Really just sitting, really not working on anything else, focused as a concert pianist would be before their or during their performance, as an athlete would be, as a dancer would be, as a lover would be, just fully focused on sitting. And it's just sitting, so it doesn't require any work. The only thing that could be less effortful is just lying down. I'm not going to do that because when we do that, we go to sleep. So we're just sitting. It doesn't require your face to do anything. And your emotional body as a whole is part of your posture, is part of how you sit. Now, the most obvious places for us feeling our emotions in our face, our chest, our throat, our abdomen area. We can feel emotions in our hands and our feet and all other places. We can even feel emotions outside of our body, or at least spreading out from our body. But normally, when we sit down, you may not have the sensitivity yet to be aware of this, but almost all people will have some emotional tone in that front of the face, throat, and torso. And it may be centered in a certain area. You might have some emotion in the chest or the belly, but there'll be something in there. And it's just part of sitting. And you can notice when you really put the intention down to sit and just sit, there might be some emotion about that, some nervousness or resistance. some whininess or sadness. If you've been sitting for a while, there also might be a sense of joy or eagerness or peacefulness. These are all part of the body sitting. So to just sit does not mean to not have any emotions. Again, you can think of your emotions as another part of the posture. And just as we might notice that parts of our posture are not perfect yet or are sort of out of whack, but we just sit with them and we just let them be there, even though we might intentionally be working on our posture. We do the same thing with the emotions. When we sit down, we'll notice the posture of our emotion. This is a very important thing to start to learn about yourself. Is what is the present moment pattern of my emotions, and also what is the habitual pattern of the emotions in my body? But you have to do this with love, affection, and acceptance. If you notice habitual patterns in your body and every time you notice them, you're like, I don't like that. I want to get it away, go away. It will never go away. It will just sit there because you've set up a mental resistance to it. So the mind will just keep it there. Instead, we just notice, oh yeah, I've got an emotional pattern. Everybody has an emotional pattern in their body at all times. It's something that humans are born with. It's part of our inheritance. It's to have we walk through the world with a tone. And that emotional pattern, of course, is changing and fluid, but there's always something going on. And that includes a sense of numbness or dullness or flatness. That some of us will need to explore that emotion. Sometimes that's at the far end of that is depression. And again, we feel these things are felt. And so again, we're just sitting. This just happens to be here. It's as if we were sitting under a tree whose flowers were falling, and they fall on our head and they fall on our hands. We're just still sitting. Doesn't change anything that there's a flower in our lap. Same thing if we were sitting in the rain. We're sitting and now we're wet. Sitting in the sun. We're sitting and now we're hot. So we're sitting with our emotions. We're sitting and now we're joyful. We're sitting and now we're anxious. It's just a weather pattern in the body. And since our meditation is to just sit, we don't need to do anything about it. The one time in our waking life where we don't actually need to do anything. I mean, the truth is we never need to do anything, but that's not how we live. So here in meditation, we're practicing, learning what it means to not have to do anything, to just sit. So take again another feeling of the body, just sitting. Reset your intention. I'm going to sit with intention. And what's the intention? The intention is to sit. There's no other intention. The intention is just don't get up. Okay. We can add in an intention of stillness. You don't want to make it too rigid or else you'll get in a whole war about that. But an intention to just sit and do nothing else. Can you do it? In some sense, I'll guarantee you can't do it right away. But It's so simple. So you know what you're supposed to work on. Just sit here. So final part of your posture is the mind. And again, when we sit down with a body that has its shape and its pains and pleasures. We also sit down with our emotions that get expressed across the face and the throat and heart and the abdomen. And we sit down with our mind. And there's a posture to the mind as well. Now, this is one of the places where people get in a lot of trouble with meditation because there's a thought that you're supposed to shut off your mind, that you're not supposed to have any thoughts. And that is just not true. It's not part of meditation and it's not part of reality. The mind is like the heart. The heart beats, the mind thinks. The liver processes toxins, the brain thinks. So that's just what it's going to do. It can get much quieter. It can take a complete rest, yes. It's not a goal to make that happen. The posture of the mind that we're really going for is a kind of clarity and transparency and a kind of ease and spaciousness. And all of that is not something you need to make happen, just like everything else we've talked about. The little blockage you might have had in your spine, or the tension in your jaw, or the emotion in your belly. We're not forcing ourselves to put our emotions in the proper order or put our back in the proper order. We're giving it attention and then we're just sitting with it. And we do the same thing with the mind. So the mind may not feel clear. It may not feel transparent. It may not feel easy. It may not feel open. It may not feel light and loving. And so we're like, okay, that's what I'm sitting with. That's also rain, sun, flowers falling, wind. We're just sitting with whatever weather is happening in our mind. And by just sitting with it and not getting involved in it, you will immediately start to gain a little bit more clarity. At first, it might be microscopically more, but by doing this repeatedly, your mind will get more clear just because you're sitting with it without getting lost in it. Getting lost is the source of the lack of clarity. So rather than doing anything about our mind or doing anything with our mind, we just sit with our mind. We just sit. That's all we're doing. The only thing we're doing is sitting. Final important thing to be aware of in our posture, in our sitting, is that most of us sit down with a self. That is, you sit down as a person. So you can call it your name. I sit down as Chris Kelly. But that is a thing that's created in our mind, or it's an idea we have of ourselves. And it's really already part of everything I've already said. It's sort of implicit in our body, our emotions, and our mental thinking. But it's the most important piece of our posture because it's where we think all the doing comes from. So can we also, when we sit, just sit with our sense of self, the sense of what person we are. That person will be manifested in pictures in our mind and maybe words, visions of our body, expressions, and emotions. So it's already everything we talked about. But we can hone in and just make sure there are certain thoughts and feelings that hide from us because we think they are ourselves. So if they're us, we can't look at them because that would be like looking an eye looking at itself. But that's just not true. You can look at this sense of self, or at least the person, the sense of the person. And so we sit with ourselves. That's a way of putting this. We sit with ourselves. And what is the posture of the self that we are ultimately moving towards? Again, we sit with the self with love. We're not trying to change it or fix it, but there is an ultimate posture that we're moving towards. Just like we might notice the spine is a little bent, and ultimately we're looking for uprightness, but we're just letting it be the way it is. The sense of self we're looking for is empty, is so thin that we can see through to the one part of self that is actually not in the mind or emotions. And that has been called lots of different things, but we wouldn't be here sitting without our sense of presence or our awareness, our sense of being, whatever you want to call it, our self with a capital S. So our ultimate posture in the sense of self to be so have such a light and transparent attachment to the person that we can just sit as awareness. And when we finally sort of start to tune into that posture, then sitting becomes you sit the way that a rock sits. It's the easiest, most effortless thing in the world. The rock has no worries, is making no efforts. It just is. But the only way there, well, not the only way, but the simplest way there is to just start to wake up to your sense of self. And you just sort of honing in on what does it feel like to be me sitting right now? Who is the me that's sitting right now? And you don't have to reject any answers you get. If you're told that you're a musician or you say, who's the me? Oh, it's the musician sitting or the banker. That's fine. A husband. If you're told you're a worrier, if your answer is you're scared, if your answer is you're a body, um, you just keep feeling in and then you wait for the next answer and the next answer. Who is sitting? Okay. And so when you think about meditation like this, then as you come out of meditation, you're letting go of just sitting. So now you don't have to just sit. But when we're practicing in just sitting, a posture, as I said. But the posture, the physical posture, has to be let go of when we let go of sitting. I mean, there's elements you can carry with your day, of uprightness and groundedness. So you can keep those. But you obviously have to start moving your body, and you can start doing that now, or you can open your eyes. But the emotional posture, the mental posture, the posture of self that we are moving towards, those you can take right off the cushion and keep working on. Who am I eating my breakfast? What is my mind like as I'm having this conversation? How are my emotions while I drive to work or watch this movie? What posture is my being in? And do I need to do anything about it? Can I just let it be? So we transition off by letting ourselves move and stretch and thanking our body and our mind for letting us just sit for a while before we get on with all the doing that we're undoubtedly going to do. That's the sit for the day. Thank you so much. You're always welcome to come back. Talk soon.